And I want to start by just like off the bat.
Yeah,
What do you define drama as?
sure.
Because like,
Are we?
yeah, we're going. Oh, we are on. I gave you no warning. I gave you literally no warning except for, okay.
I think most people know drama on the
Mhm.
inside, but like cognitively, like what is the definition of it? And it is the unnecessary stress and turmoil that either we situate ourselves in, we
Mhm.
create, we seek. It is the exaggeration, the intensification of emotions and behaviors and stories. It's the disproportionate amount of energy towards what is coming in to what needs to be expressed in order to be actually in relation to it or adapt.
Okay.
It's like blowing a birthday candle out with a fire hose instead of your breath.
Interesting.
It's like, why?
Yeah, why?
Just
Why?
why? Except that the why actually, when we look at the neuroscience and we look at the psychology of it, makes a lot of sense. But on the outside, you're just like, fuck, stop.
And I want to get into like
Yeah.
why we do this
Yeah.
and all of those things. But
Yeah.
I guess with that, I know from lived experience,
Yeah.
but why is drama actually bad?
Oh, yeah. I mean, what we're actually talking about is like an attachment to stress. Like when we're talking
Okay.
about an addiction to drama,
Mhm.
it's like, well, stress in small doses, stress as part of our daily life,
Mhm.
fine, all good. That's how we're functioning and adapting to life. But if it's like chronic and the glass is already full and we just keep pouring water in, and then we add food dye and then we add some like other stuff into the glass, and you're like, what are we doing to ourselves? It's unnecessary. And it's, you know, we all know someone addicted to drama.
Yes.
We all know. We all have that sibling or that ex-partner or that maybe it's us, but it's usually our mother-in-law or father-in-law or like someone out there. And it doesn't make sense on the outside because it's not about making sense, it's about making sensation.
Okay, so it's about making the sensation,
Yeah.
but the sensation of what? What is that sensation that we're seeking?
Okay. Well, we have to take it back, way back,
Yeah.
to like the early days of our development, our experiences, probably earlier in life, where we likely experienced some overwhelm, some chaos, some stress, chronic stress, some trauma. And one of the ways that we respond to trauma, it's not like, bam, we just had some impact. It's that we start to lose our ability to feel ourselves. That's actually one of the biggest physiological impacts of trauma. We lose our relationship to other people, we lose our relationship to ourselves. It's like if I get hit with something really hard,
Mhm.
we don't really think about this in terms of the human body, but a part of me gets knocked out, right? Knocked out of myself, and we get like scattered. And it's like something else, the trauma itself, the impact of the trauma is occupying my body as opposed to having my full self occupy myself. And which is kind of like, it's an analogy, but it's actually what's happening physiologically. We lose our contact and relationship to ourself. We become numb. Yeah. If you've ever not felt safe in a relationship or felt scared and you start to like become a shell of a human being, you know that experience. And it's when we have early developmental wounds, shitty parents, chaotic environments, name it. We've all gone through, most of us have gone through it. It's the same thing. So we begin to feel a numbness as a way of preservation to keep moving forward in life. And when you feel numb all the time, you need something at a high decibel to feel like it rises above that threshold of numbness to feel alive. So
Okay.
one of the examples is when my dog was losing his hearing as he was aging, and he would start barking because he didn't know where I was. He couldn't hear me. And so he was lonely. And so I'd put a radio by his bed.
Oh.
And over time, I kept having to increase the volume in order for him to hear it. And the same is true for us, that as we collect experiences in life that keep, and we don't process them, we get more and more numb. And we need the decibel of life sensation to keep going up
Mm-hmm.
in order to feel alive.
And is that just for trauma, or I almost feel like that's
Stress
just
too.
our lives lately? Like if I think of how my brain
Yes.
used to operate like
Yeah.
15 years ago
Yeah.
before we had all of the apps
Yeah.
at our
Yeah.
like fingertips that we
Yeah.
have now, I do feel like I was able to be bored
Yes.
or watch a show and not constantly be grabbing for something else,
Yeah.
like focus on one stimuli at a time.
Yeah.
But now that we have so many things
Yeah.
at our easy access,
Yeah.
I feel like that volume, I love that analogy. You
Yeah.
keep having to turn it up and turn it up and turn it up until, I mean, I don't know what the end game is, but like I will look at myself of all of the things I'm doing at once. I'm like, this is not okay.
This is not okay.
Not
No.
okay.
No, we're actually replicating chaos.
Right.
Right? So it's like, oh, we got the TV going. We're watching, some reality TV show. We're on our phone. We're reading a book. We're cooking our meal. That is chaos.
Yeah.
And we might not think about it as that. And then I'm overscheduling my calendar. And it's like the same shit. So,
Mhm.
I talk about it. No, does it have to be trauma? Back in the day before the way that technology is
Mhm.
operating now and before our culture of overstimulation, yeah, it was more trauma. But now our cultural norm is to be overstimulated all the time.
All the time.
And when we're not, that becomes the norm. And so when you start to find calm, something feels off inside.
Mhm.
And an alarm goes off that says, no, 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 this is not safe.
Seek stimuli now.
Seek stimuli now, because like if we had childhood experiences or any trauma,
Mhm.
what happens in our brain is that we become vigilant towards the next possible threat or trauma. And so if we start to calm down, that same alarm system goes, hey,
Interesting.
you're not going to be safe if you relax. And so we keep seeking or creating stimulus, usually unconsciously,
Mhm.
to make sure we stay awake. It's like you're starting to get sleepy at work, you grab a Red Bull. This is not sponsored by Red Bull.
I have not had a Red Bull. God knows how long.
I
Do you
would
still
never
drink
touch
it?
that
Okay,
shit.
no.
But like coffee.
Yeah,
I don't know why Red Bull
I'm like,
came to mind
Red
first.
Bull. All I can think about is like Red Bull vodkas at a club when I was like 21,
Oh.
and that makes me want to
Vomit.
barf.
Yeah, no, yeah. Sorry if you like that shit, but don't sue us for saying that shit. But you grab that coffee
Mhm.
and you wake yourself up.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's the thing you should be doing, as opposed to going to take a nap, which is
Right.
what you should actually be doing to recuperate. But we're not in that culture. We're not in a recuperation culture. We're in a continue to stay hustling and stay busy and to stay preoccupied.
Yeah.
And it becomes the norm. And anything against the norm physiologically starts to set off an alarm.
It's so fucked.
It's so fucked.
So fucked.
We're
Like,
fucked.
no, truly, it's so fucked.
Yeah.
And I say that as someone who we just did an episode
Yeah.
that so many people resonated with about ADHD,
Yeah.
especially in motherhood,
Yeah.
and how like my brain is a monkey circus
Yeah.
and it's just constant.
Yeah.
And even if it's not, I then seek it,
Yeah.
which is something I'm actively working
Yes.
on. But in terms of,
I
Yeah.
was diagnosed with ADHD.
Were you?
Severe.
yeah,
And I always had this sense. I was like, no, that's not it.
oh, interesting.
I was like, because I would take the medication and I would feel like more of a shell human being.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, this isn't it. And it's when I started actually dealing with, it's not that I just want to talk about trauma and healing trauma.
No, it's fine.
But the reality is that when I stopped feeling so scattered is when I started dealing with the way that I was compensating for all of these like abusive childhood and
Mhm.
fucked up environment.
I'm sorry.
And it happens. Thank you.
Mhm.
But it was my mind, the way my mind was working was that there wasn't a fundamental sense of safety in my body
Yeah.
to relax into. And so the constant thoughts, the seeking stimulus, the inability to relax or find boredom okay
Mm-hmm.
was actually a representation of the fact that I didn't feel safe enough to have it.
It's very interesting. I mean, I wonder how many people resonate with that type of
Yeah.
maybe within an ADHD. What is the word?
My
when you're
yeah,
when
framework?
you're no,
Oh,
when you were told you had diagnosis. I'm like,
diagnosis.
"What
Oh,
the
yeah,
fuck
yeah.
is the word?" Because for me, I was diagnosed as a kid,
Yeah.
but then I didn't like the medication they put me on, so we
Yeah.
stopped, whatever. I had it kind of under control where I felt like I was able to operate,
Yeah.
but then when I added on one kid and then the second kid really threw me.
Yeah.
So I recently started medication and it's been life-changing for me, like
Amazing.
in the most incredible way.
Yeah.
But there are times, even without my medication beforehand, that I can find that stillness, but
Yeah.
it's so specific.
Mm.
It's like in my romance novels. Like if I have a physical thing in
Yeah.
my hand, that's
Yeah.
why I love reading,
Yeah.
and I will plow through books because I can't. Like that's the only time I really don't feel pulled to seek other stimuli. I
Yeah.
don't know why.
Yeah.
And I think it's partially because my hands are actually busy. Like
Yeah.
the fact that when I'm watching a show,
Yeah.
there are a few shows that really capture me. Do you
Yeah.
watch Tell Me Lies?
No.
Talk about fucking drama. Wait,
Wait, do
I would
you feel
love
a
for you to
sense of
watch.
calm after the drama?
Um,
Is that what you're referring
no,
No,
but if
okay.
it's so good, the show,
Yeah.
not even dramatic, but
Yeah.
like if the show's just good,
Yeah.
I don't feel pulled to reach other stimuli because I'm like, I can lock in.
Yeah.
And I actually am, well, by the time this releases, it will have released, but I released a journal, an adult coloring affirmation book called
Amazing.
Quiet Your Mind and Busy Your Hands because it's so much of what I'm looking to do when I'm
Yeah.
constantly searching these stimuli.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a lot of like, I need my hands busy.
Yeah.
Okay, drama.
Drama.
I want to get back. Well, I will just say,
Yeah.
on the note of Tell Me Lies, I feel like I can't gloss over that because if you're a listener and you watch a show, like the season 2 finale just fucking rocked our worlds. I wish you watched it so that we could dissect because
Yeah.
talk about people seeking drama.
Yeah. By
The
the way,
two-
they all died at the end.
The main guy, Steven and Lucy, like
Yeah.
it's the most narcissistic, toxic relationship in the world.
And why do we love that?
But well, so I love, yes, I love the show because it's
Yeah.
so many curveballs and
Yeah.
I think it's really good acting,
Yeah.
really good storytelling. And I love how they weave it between timelines.
Yeah.
But it's been so interesting to talk to people about the show because
Yeah.
some people, this is nothing against the actual actor who's playing Steven, okay? But some people love his character.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, oh my God, I'm rooting for them to end up together. I love him. I find him so hot. And I'm like, girl, you are addicted to toxicity. That man is a fucking walking red flag. And like, I am so turned off by him. I actually despise, like he gives me such an ick
Yeah.
because he's psycho in the show.
Yeah.
But it's been so interesting to have these conversations with friends where they're like, wait, shit, like,
You mean
am I a problem?
they get the trauma tingles, you do not.
Yeah,
'Cause you
they're
feel
like,
some shit.
ooh, I'm interested in that guy. And I'm like, guys, no, no. But speaking of TV,
Yeah.
reality TV,
Yeah.
I want to get into it
Yeah.
because, well, I guess, what are your thoughts?
Well, my experience of reality TV, having been on it.
Oh, what were you on?
We're not
Sorry, poor
talking about it.
research. Okay, we're not going to talk about it.
No, this show never got aired. 'cause
Oh,
it was so
okay.
bad.
Okay.
It was a fucking ghost hunting show back in the day.
A ghost hunting?
Yeah, a ghost hunting show. An
Oh
underwater
my God.
ghost hunting show.
Okay.
Disaster.
I didn't see that for
And
you.
I like to have many sides.
Yeah.
And like the exaggeration and the intensification of things of like, okay, that was a great moment. Can you turn it up to a 7?
Yeah.
You know, and so much of it is heavily produced to capture and maintain your attention,
Mm-hmm.
just like all of our like watching the news.
Yeah.
Like the words that are chosen, the things that are edited are about how to capture and maintain your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that something else has your attention, the less you have your own attention.
I really like that. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. The more that the news, media sources, it is a rat race for attention out there.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants it, and everyone has devices and tools to capture and maintain it. And that whoever has your attention is the victor of capitalism.
Yeah.
You know, it's how our economy works. It's called an attentional economy.
Yeah.
And what it does is that the more that someone else or something else has your attention, they win, you lose. Because that attention is not directed towards you. You're not able to regulate your emotions. You're not able to feel into what you need. You're not able to give yourself the nourishment and care that you need
Mm-hmm.
because you are a sailboat without a rudder.
So when it comes to something like reality TV, I'm just
Yeah.
using this as an example.
Yeah, and I don't mean to shit on it. I know
No,
lots of
it's
people love
fine.
it.
I actually don't love it. It stresses me out.
Yeah, I don't watch it.
I did just watch one show. It's like the only reality TV I've actually watched. I
Yeah.
binged Summer House.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
However, many of my friends are like Bravo heads, and they're
Yeah.
like, no, I just love having it on in the background. It's
Yeah.
such good. Like, it just makes me feel, I don't know. But
Makes me feel better about my own life.
yeah, a lot of that. It makes me feel really anxious.
Yeah, me too.
Because there's so many people yelling. And maybe that's because I grew up in a very loud household.
Yeah.
I had an incredible childhood, very privileged. My parents are amazing. I'm very close with them.
Yeah.
That being said, it was a very loud and high energy home.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's my prone to overstimulation. But when I watch reality TV, I often just feel like I want to like get in a hole and like
Yeah.
not come out.
Yeah.
So what is it that we all are so drawn to it?
Yeah.
Because we just want to watch like a car crash?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, right?
I mean, why would we watch a violent movie before bed or watch the news? Like, if you ever take a
I would
moment,
never, but yeah.
yeah, if you ever take a moment and you're watching the news and you just stop, like, turn off the TV, notice how you feel,
Mhm.
and if you like, oh my God, I'm anxious. Oh my gosh, I'm kind of hot. I'm bothered. I'm distracted. I'm not feeling very grounded.
Mhm.
They've done their job.
Yeah.
They are activating your amygdala to capture your attention. Congratulations to them, not so much to you.
Just one really quick thing
Yeah.
on that with the news.
Yeah.
I don't I don't watch the news. I'll
Yeah.
read certain things, but I never have it on.
Yeah.
But like at one point on Sundays, football sometimes turns over to the news.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Yeah.
It was on the TV, and it's so interesting to really realize how insane some of the news broadcasting is when your kid starts asking, like, what is that? And all of a sudden it's
Yeah.
like a body bag being,
Yeah.
I'm like, why?
Yeah.
What is happening?
So you can see over the timeline of the last 25, 30 years that the increase of violent imagery, like a body bag, language, even like the language they use is more dramatic. It's called
Yeah.
dramatic languaging or dramatic narrating. And even the gestures will increase. And all of that is because we've created a level of tolerance, meaning that it's just like alcohol,
Yeah.
just like drugs. You need more to get the high more. The same is with stress or drama. You will need more to feel more of the response, or they need you to feel more so they can capture and maintain your attention. And this, this is not a conspiracy theory. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I just want to make that really clear.
Yeah.
It's not like they're trying to get you. It's
No,
they're
but
trying
it's just
to,
the reality of the news in today's
yeah,
world.
and media. It's
Yeah.
they're trying to maintain your attention.
Yeah,
Or-
it's not even
yeah.
media. Like it's not even just the news. If you think
Yeah.
about like TikTok, like you
Yeah.
need the hook
You need
in
the
the beginning
hook.
of the video, and it's like
Exactly.
how salacious
Yeah,
or wild can you be?
exactly.
And there are so many things that I'll watch, even
Mhm.
like a podcast clip,
Mhm.
where people edit it so clearly to stir up an emotion,
Yeah.
so that then you're listening to the show
Yeah.
and they're getting the downloads.
Yeah.
Like it's very clear. I
Yeah.
think once you see how the sausage is made, it's
Yeah.
more obvious.
Yeah, if you can evoke anger, awe, or anxiety, then it's that much more, it's 60% more likely to be shared.
Yeah. I forget what it's called on TikTok when people will post these like ridiculous videos that like just clearly spark anger, but like
Mhm.
they're doing it purposely. Like
Yeah.
I saw this woman make a cooking video, and she like takes the chicken breast and she like puts it in the sink and washes it with like Dawn soap.
Yeah.
And I forget the terminology, but everyone's like, this, I refuse to believe this is real.
Yeah.
Like you're just trying to stir up a reaction.
Yeah.
In terms of drama, reactions in reality TV,
Yeah.
let's talk about gossip,
Okay.
because
Do you know
I
where gossip started?
no, tell me.
It's a concept that came from the church.
Interesting.
And it was about sharing the information. And it was like this idea of whispering from an auditory perspective or oratory perspective
Mhm.
from one person to another.
And what were they whispering?
Information about
Okay.
like
Not like
the
negative
religion.
necess-
No,
okay, got
not
it, got
negative
it.
at all. And then it became something about this whispering, this sharing. And there's something really, salacious about gossiping because you're part of the in group of it. If I whisper
That's what I
to
wanna talk about.
you and I whisper to you something with this voice, do you lean in?
Yeah.
Of course you do. You feel like, oh, I want to be part of it. It's
Mhm.
seductive and it's very exclusionary.
Yep.
And oftentimes, if we've ever vented to a friend, we came home from work and we're like, just venting and talking about our feelings and stuff like that, it's also draws people in. It's
Mhm.
the same kind of mechanism that it's a bit seductive and we become kind of enclosed. Yeah. So talk about drama bonding.
No, truly. So I have so many thoughts on
Yeah.
gossip.
What's your thoughts?
Well, growing up, I mean, I definitely gossiped. Like,
Sure.
no way am I doing this from like a holier than thou standpoint.
Yeah.
However, I did feel like I hit a point in my life,
Mhm.
and quite honestly, I think it was when I became more of a public facing figure
Mhm.
that I started to see people gossiping about me.
Oh, interesting.
And being like, "That's not true," or like,
Mm.
"Why do you care so much?"
Yeah.
Or like, "God, you're making a story out of something that's not a story."
Yeah.
And I felt such intense reach by other people to make something a thing that wasn't,
Yeah.
that then it really flipped the script in my head of like, how often am I doing that when I'm talking
Mm.
about people? Or, when people are shitting on influencers or creating these like theories, I'm like, none of that is true.
No.
Like, that's just so not the reality.
No.
And so I made a vow to stop gossiping. And now my friends will always make fun of me because, like, if I ever say anything, like if I talk shit, they're like, "Oh shit, she's back." Like, and so they'll like sometimes they try, and part of me wants to give in
Yeah.
because it can be. There's no easier way to bond with someone
Yeah.
than a shared secret or hate.
Yeah.
Is that so fucked
And
up to
pain.
say?
Shared
Pain?
secret, hate, and
Yeah.
pain. Yeah.
Like if we walked into a party and like there's some person over there and they were just acting wild and we're like, what the fuck is happening? Do you
Mhm.
see that person?
Yeah.
And like we connect over that. There's like that bond
It's in-group bonding.
right.
Yeah.
So I think that that's why so many people do it.
Yeah.
My other theory is that specifically around like hate on people you might not know or
Mhm.
that type of gossiping,
Mhm.
I think so many people are searching for community.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to feel like they have someone. And I say this a lot about like hate comments, for instance. Like,
Yeah.
I just will never understand in your right mind, like leaving something like that on someone's content. Because if something ever like blew my mind in that way, I would text it to my friends.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh my God, did you see this?
Yeah.
And that's what made me realize that that person doesn't have the community to send it to. So they're
Mm.
searching for that community in whatever comment section that is.
Yeah.
And that really opened my mind to empathy
Mm.
for people.
Yeah.
Not even on my content,
Yeah.
other people's content, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, why are we so drawn to gossip? And how does it negatively impact us? Like, should we be stopping?
Yeah. I mean, often in the gossip, we're staying in the drama feedback loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, hey, so and so did this. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I heard so and so did this. And then they did this. And we're in what's called the drama narrative.
Yeah.
We're kind of evoking a stress response in each other and bonding through it.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, we want to feel part of community. And there are mechanisms, certain themes that bring us closer together. I think, were you here during 9/11 in New York City?
No.
Okay.
I was in New Jersey, but my dad was in the building next door and I lost like a second father. So it was
I'm
very
so
close.
sorry, love.
Thank you. It was very
Yeah.
close to home.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But that moment in time
The moment in time is unforgettable.
bonded so many people over that trauma.
Yeah, it was my second day in New York City.
Oh my
I
God.
just moved here. I was, on my way to school, saw what happened. I'm not going to go into
Jesus.
the
Yeah.
details. And I'll say why I'm not going to go into the details in a moment. But
I have thoughts on that exact thing.
and I remember in the days that followed, again, I had just moved to New York City. I found it a cold place to be.
Fair.
But I remember taking a bus ride up to my aunt's friend's house because I didn't know anyone else in the city.
Mhm.
And I sat next to this woman and there was a moment of silence and she just turned to me and she said, "Did you lose anyone?" And we just started crying.
Mhm.
And it was like and like other people in the bus started crying, and like there was just like this warmth, and people were talking to each other. And it's a, you know, things like pain
Mhm.
are a deep social glue,
Truly.
and so is stress. It is a
Yeah.
social glue. There's a study that came out in Australia that took two different groups. One group had to dunk their hands in really cold water, which was very uncomfortable, and the other group had like tepid water,
Mhm.
so like nothing. And the group that had shared the experience of like the burning sensation from the cold water performed more as a group. Were able to do the group exercises actually more efficiently than the other group.
But it's fascinating, but it
Yeah.
also makes sense because
Yeah.
it's that moment of like, "Oh my god, did you feel that? That was
Yeah.
crazy. How
Yeah.
weird did
We're
that feel?"
sharing
Like, if I just
this.
put my hand in there, it's like, "Okay,
Yeah.
that was oh, you put your hand in water."
Yeah.
Like, no, there's nothing to even converse over.
Yeah.
And 9/11 being a perfect example of, like, true trauma
Yeah.
bonding of not only New York, but, like,
Yeah.
our country as a
Yeah.
whole.
Yeah.
And even I've talked to people who lived on the West Coast at the time being like, this sounds so fucked, but, like, I almost felt left out of something
Yeah.
because, like, they didn't have that connection. They didn't have that story when it comes up.
But what they had was actually something more challenging, which was the replication and the repetition of the event over and over again on the news.
Oh, yeah.
So, which is
But didn't
actually,
we all have that?
well, what's interesting is the research shows that those who watch an event like that with more repetition, it's a certain amount,
Okay.
um, that will actually have more severe PTSD than those who are experiencing it. So, like,
That's fascinating.
yeah, so like the Boston bombing, for example,
Yeah.
it showed that those who were at the event demonstrated less symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder than those who watched the video clip 30 times or more.
And
And
that's it, 30? That's
30.
not even that many.
No, it wasn't that many. That's the thing. And how many times on social media is something shared? And,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like, and why are we reposting it?
Well, I mean, I say this every year on 9/11. Please be cautious of the content you're resharing.
Yeah.
But like, people will be like, 9/11, never forget, and post a photo of the towers. Like,
Yeah.
there's just no reason in the moment of time that they're choosing that exact, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they're choosing a very graphic image.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is that? You don't know who's consuming your content and how triggering that imagery can be. And we all don't need to continuously see it over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm someone who this is actually fascinating. I'm going to take this to my therapist. I seek out sometimes, like for instance, the recent hurricanes in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
My For You page on TikTok, because I clicked on one and then I
Mhm.
started clicking on more, the entire thing.
Yeah.
And I was so glued in
Yeah.
that I couldn't stop thinking about it, couldn't stop watching the videos. And like, I'll do it with something like that. I'll do it with other natural. It's a big for natural disasters for me,
Yeah.
which makes sense from certain moments of my childhood. But I just get hooked and I want to like see everything.
Yeah. And we
Why?
don't necessarily, well, why? Well, the hook is the same thing. A hyper stressful stimuli, whether it's coming from reality television or
Mhm.
gossiping or a roller coaster of a relationship or something intense on the news, is going to pull us in. We're evolutionarily designed that when there is oftentimes anger, awe, anxiety, that we're going to be pulled into that material first. Once we're
Interesting.
in, it's hard to let go. And what we don't recognize is that we're in a drama feedback loop of like, okay, I need to know more. I'm clicking into that next video. I'm having a cortisol flush.
Truly.
My focus actually becomes more attuned to the threat or to the issue. And so I'm locked in even more deeply.
Yeah.
And then I can't get out because I have to know more because my attention is so strong. I believe that that means I have to focus more in on this. And cortisol is also a numbing agent, so like, or that stress creates a numbing agent rather is more the appropriate thing to say. Is like, after like a runner's high. Have you ever had a runner's high?
Like
Or
honestly, I
heard
used
of
to
it?
run, but
Yeah.
like I don't know if I ever got that.
Really?
Like
There's a certain mileage and shit like
I
that.
don't know. I
But
felt like the whole time I was running. Maybe. I mean, I used to do I did have marathons and
yeah,
I used to run a lot. So maybe there was
it's
for me and I just forget.
or
But I don't run because of the cortisol,
yeah,
like how much it spiked my cortisol.
yeah. And typically it's okay if we can process it through, but it's also an endorphic release, which is a pain reliever. So stress is a natural pain reliever that often goes with cortisol, but it's so these types of things like our stress responses release a natural pain reliever. So if we're riding around as gently used human beings in this world who have kind of a shit ton of pain that we probably haven't
Mhm.
processed, why don't we numb it out with something that's fast acting, cheap, free, easy to get
Yeah.
called drama?
And how do we stop ourselves from doing this?
Well, I mean, the first thing
Can we?
is, I mean, it's funny. When I wrote my book, I only wrote it up to the second part, and I was like, which was like deconstructing all the ways that
Mhm.
drama, the physiology of how we become hooked on stress, and then how our culture is mass producing the ingredients to become addicted to
Mhm.
stress, to chaos, to drama. And then I was like, I'm done. And the editor was like, "No, you have to write how do we get out of it?" And I was
Right.
like, "I I I don't know if we're headed in a direction that we can reverse course." And they're like, "That's not a way you can end a book." And I was like, "Okay." And there are ways out of it. I mean, and I want to be really fucking honest. It is hard. It
Mhm.
is hard. I'll be really fucking transparent. Like, I just ended another fucking
I'm
relationship
sorry.
thank you.
Or congratulations.
I'm
I don't
not,
know.
yeah, both,
Depends.
because,
Yeah.
there's great and there's bad, but it was a fucking roller
Well, then
coaster.
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And it was incredibly abusive. And I was like, it's okay because the highs
We're so
were
high.
so high because the lows were so low. So it felt like anything outside of that was so good. And it's
Mhm.
like, and that's part of that addiction to drama is like being willing to ride the roller coaster for the
Right.
like that high decibel of good,
Yeah.
and being willing to go down into the deep dark shit of the worst of it so that you can get back up there.
I mean, it's not funny, but so many people
Yeah.
say, the most toxic relationship you could ever be in is parenting a toddler because
Yes, it is the
I mean,
same thing. It's a
it's
roller coaster.
wild.
It is.
Like, yesterday,
Yeah.
at one point, my son said, "I hate you, go away,
Yeah.
don't play with me," and slapped me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "I'm still gonna come back to you.
Yeah.
I'm still going to love you,
Yeah.
of course,
Yeah.
and, I'm gonna seek that high,
Yeah.
and I know it's gonna be okay," but
Yeah.
it's so hard not to react,
Yeah.
especially when you're in this toddler situation because you can't react the
You
way you
can
wanna
Yeah.
react.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm just sitting there like,
Yeah.
"Okay, that wasn't nice,"
Yeah.
instead of being like, "You little fucking
Yeah.
asshole."
Yeah.
But it's that up and down and up and down, and,
Up and down.
the lows can feel of just especially postpartum,
Yeah.
so isolating, so lonely, so terrifying,
Absolutely.
but the highs are just, uncomparable.
Yeah.
And that was the first real, roller coaster I rode.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
I've been with the same person for 17 years, and
Oh,
it's been very he is as
solid.
solid as,
Nice.
hand when they're like, "You see my hand? Is it shaking?"
Yeah.
That TikTok trend, or where was that from? Whatever. I have brain rot. That's how I envision
Yeah.
him. He's just
Yeah.
a solid human.
Yeah.
And I feel like this ride with children is the first "Whoa, here we go."
Welcome to the roller coaster that so many people
Yeah.
have navigated at some point, whether it's a
Mhm.
relationship or a job or family
Actually, I
connections.
guess I did have it with someone at my job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've had it.
Yeah.
And it's
I
like,
just forget about that.
yeah. Well, it's exciting at sometimes and it's awful. And it's like,
Mhm.
it's oftentimes when when we grow up in an environment of chaos. And for many of us pre-social media, that was like our immediate environments of our family systems.
Mhm.
Now we're in a more like environment that is chronic chaos and it doesn't have that stability, sturdiness that you talk about, like your
Right.
partner. It has the ups and downs, and that becomes our new normal. And so we seek it, we create it, we, keep finding ourselves in the same situations
Mhm.
that feel like shit. And we oftentimes blame the other person.
Yeah.
And fault goes both ways. And it's part of us was magnetized towards it,
Mhm.
not consciously, but it's like, that familiar hell.
Right, and it's why people will start fights out of nothing, of, like,
Yeah.
you just wanna and I will say, like, when we were in high school, I do remember doing this with
Yeah.
my now husband of being like, "If I say this one thing, can I spark more emotion out of him?
Yeah.
Can I get that, like,
Yeah.
confirmation of I don't know what the
Yeah.
feeling I was seeking was?"
Aliveness,
Yeah.
but it's confirmed through heightened emotion.
Mhm.
It's like if I piss you off, there's a passion, there's an intensity. I
Right.
feel something from you. And if I've been numb, at least I can feel something as opposed to nothing.
We've talked a lot about trauma, but I also wanna talk about, like, the somatic
Mhm.
stress response, is that the
Yeah.
correct term?
Yeah.
Because I think about this a lot lately. I know I've listened to you speak about this, and I've thought about it before, where I have a dog, and
Yeah.
I watch him shake it off.
Yeah.
Like, he's
Yeah.
a very leash reactive dog, so
Yeah.
walks are very interesting, but when he gets so worked up
Yeah.
and his hackles are up and he's freaking the hell out because there's a doodle coming our way that he hates, once
Fuck
we
that doodle.
fuck the doodle. Once we pass,
Yeah.
he immediately marks and pees,
Yep.
and then he does a huge shake and a kick of the legs
Mhm.
to scent himself or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, is that what our bodies wish they could do?
Such a great question. Yes. So we are designed, often people think of stress as like the big bad boogie monster in the
Mhm.
closet, and it's just something coming at us. But our stress is actually part of our process of how we adapt in life. The better we are at being with stress, the better we are at adapting. And what makes us shitty sometimes of being with stress is actually the fact that we don't complete the stress response, meaning
Mhm.
like, okay, there's a stimulus coming in, we call that, and we have a body response. Most people feel like, oh, there's a tightness in my chest,
Mhm.
or my shoulders are getting tense, or my jaw is getting tense. That's just part of a normal human response called activation. It's
Okay.
the preparation to mobilize that that energy that's here in order to adapt.
And is that going back in time to, like, fight or
The
flight?
fucking
Like
beginning.
right, but that's because,
Yeah.
like, there were actual tigers, like, trying to kill
Yeah.
us, and it was like, am I going to
Yeah, we're just designed to have
Yeah.
a response. You throw that water bottle at me, the first thing I'm going to do is have a release of cortisol, a
Mhm.
release of energy to be able to catch it or duck or, I don't know, throw mine at you at the same
Right.
time, whatever we want to do.
Water fight.
Water fight, of course. But I need that energy released in my body in order to action.
Yeah.
And we are designed to action. We're not designed, if there's a tiger coming at us or whatever, or a
Mhm.
water bottle coming at me, I'm designed to have an energy that gets released in order to action,
Right.
duck,
It's the
catch it,
flinch.
run away, hide, whatever it is. And so many of us have had to or do suppress the
Mhm.
response. And sometimes that just shows up as volatility and rage later on because we've suppressed other impulses of response. Like, I don't like if you throw that at me, or like the doodles coming at your dog,
Mhm.
you see it in the animals. Like they shake it off.
Yeah.
That's what we're designed to do.
It's, like,
Is if
such an intense shake off.
yeah. Yeah. If I'm not able to action it in that moment, like catch the water bottle or duck or something, I need to take some moments later and literally shake it off
Mhm.
because that energy is just coursing through my veins with nowhere to go. And it just builds up over time until oftentimes we just have an explosive, dramatic response that is not actually part of our process of adapting in our health system.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
I do a lot of body work.
Great.
So, like, I do spinal energy healing, and I've
Cool.
done a bunch of Reiki and
Mhm.
acupuncture, all of those things, but I feel a deep desire, especially when I'm on the table, but even during workades or like that literal shake.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you've ever done The Class by Taryn Toomey, but
Mhm.
it's a fucking
Yeah, the
experience.
shaking.
And there's the shaking, the jumping,
Yeah.
the screaming.
Yeah.
Literally yesterday in my car, I was having such a anxious and rageful afternoon.
Mm.
And I was driving my son home from school and I just felt like I needed to scream. So I was
Yeah.
like, all right, buddy, ready? On the count of 3, we're going to yell at the top of our lungs. And we're just going to see if it feels better because we're going to release this energy.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, like I've been teaching him for months now. We don't yell in our family.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's just a release of energy. We're not
Yeah.
yelling at anyone.
Yeah.
And it helps me. I think he thought I was losing it, but he thought it was funny. But I think that physical act is so important.
Yeah.
And I saw this quote recently that was like, I'm prioritizing not how productive I can be, but how calm I can be when I work.
Yeah.
And it really hit me because I notice so often when I'm working, I am like,
Yeah.
like you can't, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see like I am
Clenched up.
clenched.
Yeah.
Every aspect of my body is
Yeah.
tight and clenched. And like, this is probably TMI for you, but my listeners know this. Like, there's nothing better than a good poop. And like, I
Here for it.
cannot poop in the afternoon lately because I've been so insanely like tight
Yeah.
and tightly wound that I can't fucking relax.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, I mean,
I threw a
it's-
lot at you right there.
No, it's
with
great.
no
You-
actual question.
it's all right. I'm here for it. I don't need a fucking question. I can have a conversation. It really sounds like you are identifying, you have enough awareness where most people don't actually, that they're holding a certain level of tension. I mean, in fact, we, again, are designed to not be aware of it.
Right.
It becomes the new normal. So if like I go, that sort of like shock freeze
Yeah.
response, and I'm holding all my muscles really tight, over time, that becomes the new normal. It's the base point
Mhm.
to which I'm existing and walking through the world. And it takes something like increasing it and shaking it off to feel something different. It's in the same way when we don't feel safe,
Mhm.
over time, we don't even recognize we don't feel safe. That just becomes the baseline.
Right.
And all of our funky compensational survival strategies of like, getting into fights with people, being constantly hyper vigilant, seeking, creating stress, drama, all of those things that are symptomatic of that become part of our daily practice to try to heal it, but we don't even know it's there because it's become so normalized.
It's like this buzzing. That's kind of how I
Yeah.
envision myself when I'm really anxious.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
bee
yeah.
just buzzing around, like
Yeah,
not
like
grounded
something's
at
wrong,
all.
but you can't quite place
Right.
your finger on it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So we talk a lot about the trauma,
Mhm.
the like looking for stimuli. I think something that I speak about a lot to like wrap this up with a nice little bow
Yeah.
is filling my cup
Mhm.
and doing things that make me feel differently than all
Yeah.
of these things we've stated.
Yeah.
So we have a segment to close the show of like, how do you fill your cup? What do you
Yeah.
do as specific as you can get? Like, how often are you doing these things? What is it that calms your nervous system down?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it goes back to also like, how do we heal this? Because
Right.
what we're talking about is how do we let our nervous system and calmness or easefulness become part of the status
Mhm.
quo. It's not that we have to be calm all the time or easeful.
Right.
It's just that we also have to have it as part of our vocabulary of being.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do I fill my cup? I fill it in a lot of ways. I mean, lately it's been a lot of community and
Love that.
connecting and just like at different times it's been like running or more movement based stuff, kind of shaking things out.
Mhm.
So it kind of varies per day, but it's, when I find myself, and I'm a lot less in that drama cycle than I used to be, but when I find myself going, what, why am I, why do I keep coming back to something, for example? Why can I not let it go?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I move further into it.
Interesting.
Like, okay, why can't I let that thought of that person go? Well, first I'm going to accept that it's here and go, what if I just give myself 2 minutes to have all the sort of thoughts? And then I know at the end of the 2 minutes, I'm going to step away. I'm going to move away from thinking that and put my attention somewhere else. So it really is an art of shifting attention.
Okay.
It's knowing like watching your own physiology of like, ooh, this activity or this news segment is really revving me up,
Mhm.
kind of getting me into that stress response. Is that what I want in this moment? Is that
Right.
what I need? What do I actually want to need? And if I can't identify that, I need to turn off or get away from whatever I'm dealing with to be able to answer that question. That is a real true sign we're stuck in someone else's or some stimuli that has captured our attention and left us with no control of ourself.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
For people who want more of you, where can they best support you?
Sure. My socials are at Dr. Scott Lyons, so Dr. Scott Lyons. My website is Dr. Scott Lyons. Um, I run a online education platform where we teach trainings and education and
Cool.
workshops called the Embody Lab.
Your podcast?
My podcast is The Gently Used Human.
Your book?
My book is Addicted to Drama.
You can hire me for your PR.
You are hired. Thank you so much. And yeah, reach out, connect, and I look forward to interacting with you.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
community is great. So thank you so much for coming on here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.